Hello and welcome to Association Amplified Live. Today we're talking about AI, the workforce, and what associations can do to help their members navigate what's ahead. Joining me is Jen O'Brien, Director of Research and Innovation at the American Marketing Association, where she helps businesses, teams, and workers prepare for AI, what AI will bring with marketing. Jen, really glad to have you here.
So happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Marcus.
And just a reminder to our audience, drop your questions in the chat and we'll get to them later on in the show. So Jen, let's get into our first question here. So AI is everywhere right now, and most of the conversation is about tools. From your perspective, what's the biggest shift happening underneath all of that, and what should associations be paying attention to right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you look at the conversations happening in the association space right now about AI, the vast majority of those conversations are focused internally. So, how do we unlock new revenue streams? How do we increase productivity? How do we build an AI-enabled workforce? And don't get me wrong, I think those are the right questions to ask. How do you get your team to adopt AI? How do you re-architect workflows and teams? How do you create whole new value propositions with AI? Certainly, like all companies should be thinking about those. But I think the pressing question that I'm not seeing enough of in conversations with associations is what AI is doing to the people that we serve. We have jobs disappearing, entry-level pathways are shrinking. There are entire roles like translation that are disappearing completely. And so I think associations need to be asking which jobs in our profession are declining, which skills are becoming obsolete, which skills are becoming even more important today, and what are the new roles that are just starting to emerge that we can help prepare the workforce for. And maybe we can get back to this later, but what's the AI playbook actually look like for someone in the field? And so for an association that serves marketers, these questions feel especially urgent, right, at the American Marketing Association. Marketing is perhaps the second most exposed profession after software engineering. So it serves as a really good case study to understand what might be to come for other professions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the conversation around AI does end up being on how are we going to use it to increase productivity. And to some certain degree, that actually even applies to associations where the conversation ends up being about, well, how can this help our capacity as an organization? And every association professional knows that you're wearing multiple hats and there's never enough time in the day. So that's very relevant. But you raise a great point here where, people are really wondering where this is all going and how it's going to affect their careers and what the future looks like, especially those early professionals. So the association's in a great position to be able to provide some guidance and really provide something that people can't necessarily do on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there are a lot of people necessarily looking out for workers, certainly not government. I think in a lot of ways, higher ed is not um, positioned well to understand what the market wants, and also in an age where learning is lifelong and it doesn't just happen with a one and done degree. Um, People need somewhere to go to, somewhere to turn to understand how do I keep learning? How do I keep evolving? How do I stay relevant?
Yeah, and associations are in a perfect position to really be that authority in the middle, both between workers and the companies that are looking to adopt this and are ultimately affecting what the job market looks like. They're the ones that are shaping what these future jobs are going to be look like. And the association, again, is in a great position to kind of be that conduit and kind of lead and help people navigate through that. I wanted to ask you about how you've been leading research around job skills and future trends in marketing. And where are you seeing the biggest disconnect right now between the roles that actually require what professionals think they should be focused on?
Yeah. So one of the big things is that a lot of workers, especially individual contributors, are tuning out AI. They rate it as significantly lower in priority than senior leaders do, and lower than what the market signals would suggest. So there was one recent study by Stagewell that found that 86% of people think AI is just hype, which is a lot. That there is a 41 point gap between what employers think that AI can do for the workplace and what employees actually feel. So that's 68% versus 27% who are positive about that change. And 41% of people received zero AI support from their employer. So those numbers are really high. And so some people are tuning out AI, and there's a huge adoption gap, right, where we're not fully leveraging this technology. And even when individuals are motivated to learn and use AI, we're seeing that they don't actually have the support that they need from their employers and from the leaders at their organizations to move the needle. So adoption in most places is low, it's scattered, and it's ad hoc. And we are seeing that disconnected in our own research at the American Marketing Association, where individual contributors in particularly are underrating the importance of AI. Meanwhile, we're seeing the number of marketing job postings mentioning AI doubled in 2025. And this is happening among a really challenging job market where hiring is slow. We're starting to see a lot of layoffs, and it's very competitive to get a small number of jobs. Um, a related disconnect that we're seeing in our surveys is that marketers are rating adaptability, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking as less important today than they did a year ago, which those are exactly the skills that AI can't automate. And we're seeing marketers deprioritize them. It's going in the wrong direction. And this one is perhaps less relevant to other professions, but we're seeing some concerning indicators that marketers aren't fully keeping pace with the shift away from traditional search and the ways that AI and social media are reshaping how consumers find products and engage with brands. So, influencer marketing, it's one of the skills that we asked marketers to rate how important it was, and it was at the very bottom of the list. But guess what is the job that has been growing the fastest in marketing? Influencer marketing. So there's a big disconnect there. I think this is all to say that, right, that gap between what marketers think matters and what the evidence says is significant and concerning. And what's at stake is professionals getting left behind during a time when a new job is really hard to come by.
Yeah, that's really interesting. One part of my brain thinks about how marketing is in part a very creative endeavor, and AI isn't necessarily going to be able to keep up with the creative innovation that happens inside of it. But underlining what maybe the layperson thinks about marketing, maybe being graphic designer, work creating messaging, creating campaigns. There's a lot of technical work that also happens underneath it, and I think about how does AI map across all those different jobs that are under the umbrella of marketing, which is a really broad term. And really interesting point there on the influencer topic, which I think is something we all kind of give a smirk at, but like it is true that more and more content marketing is something that brands are investing in, being able to speak opposed to show your logo is something that they're interested in pursuing, and then as us as a society have become more integrated, for lack of a better term, with personalities online shifting away from traditional broadcasting, that's created this kind of pseudo relationship with people online, this one-way relationship, which is obviously going to be influential. And brands are going to be attracted to that. Brands are going to be wanting to think about, well, how can we use these very active channels of attention to be able to, insert our brands into it.
Yeah. And I think it can be, maybe this is going in another direction, but like could have a whole nother conversation about this. But really, like, how can brands show up in a way on these social media platforms where they're providing real value to people and they're not just, promoting their brand. But there was a great example that I heard from someone at Reddit just last week at an event, and they were talking about, how do you show up and provide value? And they used the example of Netflix showing up on Reddit. And, rather than just like, watch our shows, they're like, okay, so we have this show that's like a true crime show, and we're gonna put a Google document up for everyone to like work together and put the evidence to like try to solve this unsolved crime, which is just like so cool. Like there are so many cool things that brands can do and ways that they can show up. But like also like marketers need to know like that's the way the internet works now. Like you
Mm,
can't like especially in this age of like brands are not trusted. Who are trusted? Like your peer, like people who share the same values as you, people who have the same like rituals as you, and even that consumer base is like pretty fragmented.
yeah, and I think there is a way for brands to show up, which, there's a big difference between B2C and B2B, and we're kind of going down the rabbit hole of marketing conversation, so we'll pivot quickly here. But, ultimately, brands have competencies and people have interests, and, you know, people work for brands, and leveraging the people that work inside those companies and connecting with others and sharing knowledge is a big way to show up and actually add value, opposed to just simply advertise.
Yeah.
So moving on, if AI is changing how work gets done across the industry, what responsibility does an association have in helping its members understand and respond that?
Yeah, I think we can agree that the playbook doesn't exist yet for AI. Everyone's just doing their best to figure it out as we go along. I really want associations to be the ones to write the playbook on AI for their industries. If associations don't step up, it's going to be the open AIs, the Anthropics, the Microsofts of the world who are going to step in and create a playbook that workers really need, right? And you can bet that that playbook is going to prioritize technology over people and short-term corporate profit over long-term human flourishing. And I think we also have to be thinking about in these transitions who gets left behind, right? Entry level workers, the over 50 cohort that's continuing to grow as we have an aging population, caregivers who are being squeezed on both ends with kids and with parents that they're taking care of. Disruption really doesn't hit evenly, and associations can and should be, explicitly thinking about that. And so as nonprofits, I think we are positioned to be able to think longer term. I don't think necessarily that our teams are set up to do that, but we are not beholden to a quarterly earnings call. Our mission is not about increasing shareholder value. It's about helping workers succeed in their professions, like full stop. And so I think that gives us, we have like the right groundwork for doing this good work. Um, and most associations already have a lot of the infrastructure that they need to do this work. So a lot of us have already mapped out what are the skills, what are the competencies, what are the standards that are needed in my profession. Um, and many of them already offer training and certifications. So we can really hit the ground running when it comes to creating the guidelines and the playbook and helping people quickly reskill for tomorrow's jobs.
So for an association that wants to be more proactive, where should they actually start if the goal is to support their members through this shift, not just keep up with trends? And I think you kind of alluded to a lot there, but maybe expand a little bit more for us.
Yeah, so here are three good starting points. First and foremost, build a foresight practice. So if you're not formally scanning for signals and anticipating what's coming for your profession, you're not going to be able to guide it through what's next. I recommend ASAE has a whole suite of resources called Foresight Works. I'm one of the contributors to that. And they're basically different drivers of change, and they go through, all of these different signals. And, there's one on, for example, like AI and learning, and there's a bunch of AI ones. But those are really helpful starting points, maybe, for just seeing like how our association is going to change. Another good resource in terms of foresight is the Institute for the Future. They offer training. Some of it's free. And those are pretty accessible entry points to kind of building this foresight muscle at your association. Second one, number two, is monitoring the actual labor market. So as we're seeing with marketing, there's this mismatch between perception, like perception of like what marketers think is important, and then there's the actual market data, market reality of like here's how jobs are actually changing. And so you need to be tracking which roles are growing, which are shrinking, which skills are commanding a salary premium. Um, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics has some data that you could start with that's pretty accessible. Um, if you have a bigger budget, you'd be able to buy access to more robust real-time job data sets. And the third thing I would say to get started doing this thing is to map the skills disruption for your industry. So work with AI experts to identify which are the tasks in your field that can be automated today and which ones still need a human to do them, and then build training aligned to that new map. So, and I think the way that learning is going to be changing and the way that AI has sort of changed the game for even what does it mean to learn. That training has to look a little different. It has to be more experience based. So actually, doing things, having projects, implementing things, doing mentoring and those types of pieces. So I think there's more to do beyond those initial three steps. I outlined a comprehensive approach to this kind of work in a recent ASAE deep dive article, which if you're interested in what I'm saying today, I would recommend checking out. But those three are good starting points.
Awesome. Well, if people are interested in learning more about that, we'll make sure to link to it in our follow-up to this call right now.
Cool.
Jen, we covered a lot of ground. Thank you so much for your insights. Are you up for taking some questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Let's see what we got here. So our first question is coming in as, how do you think we can get over the AI burnout that seems to be happening despite it is still being listed as a necessary skill set on most job postings?
So, hello, let me understand the question. How do we get over the AI burnout? And this person is saying that AI is listed on most job postings.
The job
Yeah.
postings that they're seeing today. So it's probably goes back to that, maybe that disconnect that you were alluding to, where folks
Yeah.
aren't necessarily excited about AI or incorporating AI into their workflow.
Yeah, and that can be really hard when you feel like you don't have like a sense of control. Um, I mean, I think it is hard, especially, yeah, when you don't have, a lot of people, they don't have the support. They're not seeing like, how is this benefiting me? A lot of people think like, I'm I'm not going to train AI how to do my job, right? Like I'm not going to like let you. I think there's maybe some like wanting to protect. And then there can also be organizations who, they're implementing AI and they're expecting that like immediate productivity ROI and are expecting people to do more with less. I think some things need to change. Like the AI brain, there's a term AI brain fry. There's an
Mm.
article in HBR about this, Harvard Business Review. And they have some good recommendations. But basically, I think it's really important and it's hard to do if you're just an individual contributor, but something you can advocate for. People need time to learn these tools, which means like they can't just be expected to like use the tools and then automatically be like saving time. And it's almost like people need time to think right now. And that needs to be an expectation that managers and leaders set up. And also, right, do not expect to get any productivity gains if you are not rethinking how things get done. Even if you have a team of people who are using AI, unless you're really rethinking, how does work get done in this team, in a strategic way, and you're providing the resources, the support, clear guidelines around, ethical use, then you're just not going to see that. You're not going to see the needle move, and you're just kind of piling it on for your people. So, if this person is a leader, I hope that I mean, everyone has agency. Certainly, leaders, and if you manage a team, you have the agency to make some of these changes and advocate for those changes. But people can also advocate for themselves and, share the thinking about this with their coworkers.
We got another question coming in here. Do you have advice for associations trying to bring AI into their work when their members are already skeptical about everything they're seeing online, wondering what's real and what isn't?
Yeah, and so I think this person may be asking about outputs that are created with AI, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's just so many other ways to be using AI internally that can help you move faster. I mean, certainly having some kind of like one of the important skills for today that we have is discernment, taste, quality control. Those are extremely important. And I think you need to have processes in place at your association to make sure that whatever the outputs are, especially when they are being seen externally, we don't want to be putting out AI slop, right? People are drowning in AI slop. So, um, yeah, I think making sure you have clear guidelines and processes in place to ensure quality control. And then also like there are lots of ways to use AI where your members or your audience will not see those outputs, but they help the work internally happen faster. So, for example, I was talking to Dan Slagan, the head of marketing at Zapier, and he is very much agent forward in how he's working with his marketing team. And they, for example, they're just getting into events, so associations into events. They needed a speaker management system, and they created one using agents in like a couple of days, which just one example of how you might leverage this technology in a way that is like I think some people are still thinking, oh, AI for content generation, and there's just so much more.
Yeah, there's definitely room for AI to kind of help with the remedial side of really what people are working towards. And I think there is a healthy skepticism around AI, as there just seems to be a lot of pressure, I think, from the market for both people and companies to adapt the technology. And just even on a consumer level, we all kind of come across AI slop. So there's going to be a continued relationship where people kind of have one eye open, that is this AI generated, is this not AI generated? And just to narrow it around associations, is that ultimately in the end, a lot of what makes an association special is the people there. And AI isn't a replacement for those people and those lived experiences and those connections. But it certainly can help us build more efficient associations with the right tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I think we're gonna have to leave it there for the questions. And I think a good place to go from here is one last question for you. Does that sound okay, Jen?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so if an association wants to stay relevant as AI reshapes the industry, what's one move they should prioritize right now?
I would say go back to your mission and ask, what does it mean to serve the workers in this industry right now in this moment? What are the unmet needs? And have a conversation with your board and your leadership team, um, because every investment and strategic decision you make around AI should be in service to your members or really just the human workers in your industry. And I think everyone deserves to have a vibrant career, a financially stable career. And I think it's an association's duty to protect and defend that. So the future isn't set in stone, and associations can play a role in making sure that we center humans and not technology, even as we evolve our professions and workplaces in the era of AI agents. Um, and yeah, again, there's no one else looking out for workers in this way. So it's uh, a place that we can really step into.
Jen, thank you so much for this conversation. It's always such a great pleasure speaking with you, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing in this space.
Thanks for having me here. It was delightful to talk to you.
And for everyone looking for more conversations like this, you can head over to hub.tailwinddigital.com to find more conversations with people like Jen. And thank you for everyone watching, and we'll see you next time on Association Amplified Live.